Hi, this is Erin Koss, CEO of the Site Consulting Group. So we're talking today a little bit about wrapping up 2023 and thinking about the year in ERP, or Enterprise Resource Planning Solutions. It's interesting as I think about the year and how solutions are evolving, right? The hot topics this year included artificial intelligence and rapid implementation methodologies. Also included a common theme among our manufacturing clients and family-owned businesses included that of just retention and people. And at Site Consulting Group, the people part is, I think, the part that is the really common and pervasive thread that we care about on an ongoing basis, mostly because it's the thing that, while everything else continues to change and evolve, and it tends to be the big highlight oftentimes, right? Tech changes, software changes. It's costly, it's time consuming, they're big projects, but also the tech is exciting and interesting. The thing that feels like it often gets left behind is the people part. And I was just struck by this today, is as much as things change, they stay the same. And as it relates to people, the thing that we see showing up in a really common, or continues to be a really common thing that we see show up, is if you look at the ERP methodology for selection and implementation, they're the same as they've been for 20 years, right? But the thing that is one of the most challenging things that we see is that as people try and bring together or put in a new ERP solution, the idea that the focus is so heavily on the tech or so heavily on the software. And at Site Consulting Group, we really, really believe strongly that the success of an ERP solution really comes from an awareness and a sensitivity to the interconnectedness between people, process, and technology. As an example, one of the things that we see that is so common is post-implementation. We're finding we're getting a number of calls every year, and this just doesn't change. Post-implementation, companies have maybe been implemented anywhere from 2 to 5 years, and they're struggling with just not having gotten the return on investment out of the implementation. And their people are frustrated. They're not, the adoption maybe isn't really high, particularly in manufacturing and scheduling and planning. We see them using spreadsheets to do functions that, like MRP, and scheduling and planning that should be done in the ERP solution are being done offline still. And where this comes from is really a lack of attention to training and testing sometimes initially as well, but really ultimately this process during implementation of documenting the future process, making sure that it's thoroughly tested, and then most importantly, making sure that your users are getting trained and thoroughly trained. And one of the things we've been seeing the last couple of years is with COVID, and with such high turnover at some of our manufacturing clients, is without having these processes documented and not having business process owners within these different key business functions that support an ERP solution, the turnover on top of is exacerbating the lack of training that has existed at the time of implementation. And so we're seeing this kind of exponentially become really costly for companies. So they're not only dealing with the loss of employees and retention and having to rehire, but the resources are just not in place with the ERP training that you would hope they would have in order to level up the new people. And so one of the things that we've been trying to do over the last couple of years to combat this with our clients is during the selection implementation phase, starting to have conversations really early about first of all, training, right? Obviously training. But when we hear so much after the fact, post-implementation, that this problem is still existing, one of the things we're seeing is that companies, in addition to one of the consequences to not having the buy-in and the adoption and the lack of training during implementation, is that companies aren't prepared effectively for what we call the operate and optimize phase, which is post-implementation. And this is really that phase where everything that you thought you wanted to do in phase one, that you had to postpone to phase two, or just things you knew were going to be post-implementation projects or optimization efforts, need to be roadmapped, planned, and thought through. From when we roadmap those, again, it involves the people who have participated up to that point, whether that's on your core team or your subject matter experts. Now they flip the switch, they're now live, and the reality of it is you have this backlog of projects that you want to execute upon. And so you've got this limbo that you end up in for a long period of time, because if people haven't been trained effectively, or have the processes haven't been documented effectively, and there's high turnover, you'll find yourself in a situation where that getting into full operation mode in a way that really gets the ROI, starts to get a return on investment on your ERP implementation, becomes really difficult. And this just goes on and on. So then you're struggling to really operate efficiently and effectively, and then it becomes difficult to optimize over time. And so that this period of transitioning from operation, really being operational and effective, to starting to really take it, do some of the optimization work that you'd planned, that last piece takes much longer to get moving on, and does not happen as quickly as you'd like. Again, these earlier issues sort of continue to plague an organization. What we find is we end up we've been getting a lot of calls over the last number of years at sort of downstream, where companies are struggling with adoption, and this sort of where this problem has landed. Company continues to grow. They've got this new ERP. It's no longer as new as it used to be. It's 4 or 5, maybe 3 to 5 years in, and gosh, it's still just not optimal. Why is that? Well, it goes back to way at the beginning, right? Select, implement, where people aren't engaged, trained, and as involved as we needed them to be. Things aren't documented. Then you have the turnover, like we talked about. And so what we're trying to do, and what we just really feel strongly about, is in order to really start having conversations early on, not only about the training piece that we talked about a few minutes ago, and making sure that during the implementation that's really addressed thoroughly, and that's often overlooked, as we talked about. But also, how do we deal with the post-implementation, how do we start having conversations early on to recognize that the company that implements a new ERP system is going to look and smell a little different than it did before. It's bigger, it's expanding and growing. People also need to level up. You might need to add a few people in areas you haven't before. And so what is that, what do those needs look like? What do those needs look like for your organization based on its size, its culture, and the gaps in resources? So for example, one of the things that we find is in the course of implementation, Site Consulting Group will come in and provide the glue between the organization's subject matter experts and their core team, and the solution provider who has the expertise in the particular ERP that's being implemented will provide project management and business analysts to be the glue between the two, so that we can get implemented on time and effectively, and really great care is taken to consider the interconnectedness of people, process, and technology, so that people don't get left behind. In the same time, we're having really important conversations about how can we level up the people that are on the existing team, core team, subject matter experts, but also talking early about when we get to operate and optimize, who are we going to need? How much of them are we going to need to truly execute on what's left over after go live? One of the common problems we see is the core team, which is maybe 4 to 10 people, depending on the size of the company at the time of implementation. A handful of subject matter experts might make that 6 to 12 people in the end. And the reality of it is once they go live, those same individuals are your critical support resources for some amount of time. And so if you're not considering possibly the additional business analysts that you'll need to add to the organization to support those business process owners, or a structure that might need to be looked at and added to the organization that might look a little bit like a program management office or a project management office, to sort of bridge the gap between technology and the functional business owners, so the IT department and the functional business owners. How do we think about those resources and those relationships differently and create a structure post-implementation, and think about that far enough in advance, knowing the lead time we have for bringing on new people, for getting them up to speed and on board with how you do business, and being really prepared to support those core team members and subject matter experts who are busy supporting a new system initially after go live, but then eventually want to move either back into the organization, into their original roles, or maybe they want to grow into some of these analyst roles that are now more are necessary in an organization that weren't before. And so what we want to do is we try and help our clients as early in the process of selection implementation as we can, to start thinking about what does the future of this organization look like, so that once you go live, you're not just kind of stuck in chronic support mode and draining the life out of the core team and subject matter experts that have helped you get live in the first place. So to summarize, as I look back at the year 2023 and all the exciting technology and advancements in rapid implementation and some of the really great software as a service solutions that are on the market, the old ERP solutions that are making it to the cloud, like a lot of good stuff's happening, right? But it's really been the noise has been all about the tech, and we really want to make sure that companies are looking at the trifecta, right? The interconnectedness between people, process, and technology, so that when they get live with their new ERP, they really get the return on investment out of it. And that's certainly in the software that you choose, but it's absolutely how well your people are prepared to go live, continue to begin operating in the new solution, and then optimize the solution. And if we're not setting those folks up for success early on with training and good documentation, and then making sure that we're looking at what additional resources we might need post-implementation, so they're not the only guys and gals holding the cards, right, holding the bag, and you get stuck in support mode forever. What does the new organization need to look like? What kind of program and project management resources might you need? Business analyst resources might you need? And so we really encourage you to take a look at those things, because these are the things that never change, right? So we're all the tech is changing and evolving, but this part with where people are really such a crucial resource to being able to get the return on investment quickly, more easily, and effectively and efficiently over time is just really the most critical piece. And so I guess that's the thing that as I wrap 2023, I can't say enough about, and really are proud of the fact that at Site Consulting Group, this is something where I think we add a lot of value during the implementation, and we have such a heart and passion for this, where really working with our clients to pay attention to the people element and make sure they're getting the return on investment on the solution, and also leveling up their people so that both happen at the same time. So with that, I wish you a beautiful end to your 2023, and hope that going into 2024, if you're considering an ERP solution, that you'll consider Site Consulting Group for your selection and implementation process. If you feel like we're a good fit for you and you care about how your people are getting through the process, we would really, really love to have a conversation with you. Have a great year. Take care.